Welcome to McBain Manor. Julian McBain here, and this, my friends, is a special expose of Virtuverse. To get started, I want to give a huge shout out to Finn and the Virtuverse team for giving me the opportunity to do this video, which will be an expose on Crafting 2.0, and access to their sandbox so that I can do the video in a way that I feel will really highlight the things that they're implementing in the game. So thank you so much to both of them. I also want to say a very tearful goodbye to this, my beloved Octagon, which during EA3 I spent quite a bit of time in. I was looking forward to getting back in EA4, and I have been told that it will not be in EA4, so sad face. But that's okay. I've also been told that there's going to be more PvP opportunities and better PvP opportunities, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what that brings. So let's talk about Crafting 2.0. Crafting 2.0 has been built upon the feedback from players, and it's been built upon the desire to have a much more unique and immersive crafting experience. So let's talk about some of the problems that Crafting 1.0 had. Crafting 1.0 was recipe based. There was no sense of progression. I mean, you gained crafting skills so that your, let me pull up my Vita here. So your professions and your other skill levels went up. But at the same time, it felt more arbitrary, very random. The recipes were disorganized. So you could have 10 recipes, and you put those 10 recipes that you had to put them in a book. But you could only put 10 recipes in a book, and you couldn't label the book. So you had to figure out which of the 7 recipe books you put that one recipe you were looking for in, which made it very difficult when you're trying to go through all your recipes and find the specific one to make, say, the spear I'm carrying. It also made it too similar to other crafting systems within the genre across the board. And so the Virtuverse team got together and they decided to go with a more component-based crafting system. And what do I mean by that? Now there are specific terminals, like this one constructs tools. This is to experiment. This one creates components. This one crafts weapons. Over here, this one is the smelt bars, and I have the feeling that they're going to be changing the model, because as you can see, this is the original crafting station. As is this is a component one, and then we have the newer component table, which I think is going to become the standard. At least I hope it is, because this looks just awesome. And so now you're going to be able to look at, just at a glance, and know what kind of crafting station you're looking at. And you're not looking at, okay, I got to go to the crafting station, dig through the 30,000 recipes to find what I'm looking for. You're going over here, and it's like, okay, I'm only going to see weapons. Or you go over here, and it's, I'm only going to see components. So that is the first new feature of the crafting system. And I think that this is probably going to be the most impactful, because it allows players to, you don't have 30 players all gathered around the same crafting machine, which inevitably will end up being the case in a lot of areas. So let's talk about schematics versus recipes. In the old version of crafting, you had recipes. You had to put those recipes in books. Those books made it so that you had to find the recipe in which recipe book you were going to create when you went into the crafting machine. The new version is going to be in the Vita. And this hasn't been implemented yet, but it's coming. You'll find the schematics that you have inside of your Vita. You'll know what you know. You'll easily be able to find it, and they'll be organized. And you won't have a whole bunch of extra items in your inventory. They're going to be part of your digital layout like they would be in real life. Because, I mean, let's face it, how many people actually keep a recipe book anymore, besides me? I have like a whole library of recipe books. I've got my hand on 5 recipe books right now, but the average person uses their phone. So why wouldn't we, in a virtual world, do the same thing? And so that's what the Virtuverse team has come up with. Schematic discovery is going to come in one of 4 ways. The first is through research, which is a new thing that they've brought to crafting. I don't know of many MMOs that utilize something like this. I believe I've seen it in one-player games, but not in MMOs per se. Quest rewards, achievement rewards, and dungeon chest drops. So you're still going to maintain a lot of the MMO flavor, but now there's also that extra immersive realism where you can actually just sit down and make stuff and experiment and, oh wow, I learned something new because I did the work. You know, kind of like you would do when you're doing research or experimentation. So in order to do research, first off, let's go over how you construct something, the changes to it, and then how you research. So if you're going to construct something, you have to click on the item you've selected. So we're going to do basic capacitors, no required level. You've got all the information for the schematic on the left, no required level, basic complexity, quick crafting time, and the crafting quality percentages. You hit craft, and there, I made one. And as you can see, progression to the next level is shown as a green bar between the item and the number of iterations I can make of it. So if I do that again, I hit level 1. Obviously, it was enough to pretty much bring it back to the same. And you also see that my craft time went down by 0.2 seconds. It was 2 seconds, now it's 1.8. My speed went up 10%. Now, if I want to research something, I click on it. It increases my crafting time, so there is that penalty. And I hit craft. In this case, the research attempts amounted to nothing, but I did level up again. My speed went up a second time. I'm now up 20%. We're going to keep crafting a little bit until we get something worthwhile. So here, I didn't research anything new, but your papers may come in handy. This is part of the new tutoring system. We're going to talk about that in a few minutes. More papers. I believe, I don't know if they took it out or not. You should be able to enter a quantity in here. I'm not doing it, but here we go. We successfully researched advanced capacitor. It automatically popped up in our menu. We didn't have to do anything. We didn't have to consume something to learn it. It's just here. So now I'm able to make advanced capacitors. We're going to continue researching. As you can see, it takes 4 seconds on its own, 6 seconds while researching. And see how slow that goes? And it dropped down to 5 seconds almost immediately. And I keep creating papers. I'm going to see if it creates one more recipe, or we successfully research one more paper or recipe. So I think this is really going to make doing the crafting a lot more worthwhile. It's more than just trying to farm items. You're actually going through the process of learning new things. There's more of a reward for it than just farming the items. Okay, so we were not successful there, and that's okay. So let's talk about the tutoring system. The tutoring system is a new methodology with which you can learn or teach other players how to make a certain recipe. So what would end up happening is you'd walk up to a player, right click on them, which of course I can't do to this target dummy because it's not a player, and select tutor. The other player would accept. We both select a schematic with which I want to teach them and they want to learn. And then I can also optionally charge them tuition for it. So they pay me a certain amount of agreed upon Aurum if we agree that there's going to be an Aurum payment. And then a certain number of research papers, those papers here that came in handy, a certain number of research papers will be consumed. Those papers are not given to the tutoring player. They're burned. And what that does is it makes sure that there is a cost to learning that new schematic. See, I didn't notice this before. That's kind of cool. It's kind of like a DJ station, doesn't it? Oh. I guess that's going to be the auction terminal. So the way it's going to work is you... Okay. I don't know... Oh, you know what I gotta do? Close those. Look at the little X's, Julian. They're there. So the way that researching is going to assist in this is you might have a player who does a lot of crafting. Like, that's their shtick. They go, they craft, that's all they really like to do. They sell their items. Maybe they make weapons for players, and they have a player that does a lot of their farming for them. And there's good trade going on. And the player's like, well, I don't mind buying my guns off of you, but you're not always on. It'd be really convenient if I can learn how to make my guns myself. And so the teacher player will then offer to teach them the ability. The player pays, 100 Aurum and burns some research paper done from his or her own crafting, and then they can make their own guns. This is very much like real life. You trade in time researching and learning things, and then in trade you learn a skill. This is how apprenticeship work. This is how modern colleges work. And so I think that's really going to increase the immersion and the player interaction. One of the things that is going to come up, it hasn't been implemented yet, but they're going to put a mesh of the item that you selected so you can see what it is you're crafting. And I believe, if I'm reading this right, it's going to be over here. So it's going to hover over here so it's nice and visible and easy to see. If I'm not reading this right, then it's probably going to be in this area here. But what that does is it allows you to really get in and see what it is you're building. The next thing I want to go over is something that is 100% new. Actually, it's two things that are 100% new. Quality adjustments. As you skill up, you'll be able to make better versions of the item. Wow, someone was driving by with a really loud radio. And you'll be able to augment items. Now, what are item augments? Item augments are an improvement or an option that you can put onto a weapon or piece of armor or other durable item that makes it better. For instance, you might put on a better barrel that gives you better burn damage, like this refined photon barrel that increases burning damage. This is unique. In my experiences, this is less common than the attachment or enchantment version of weapon augmentation. I think that this is much more immersive because it's more realistic. You switch out the barrel when you're building the weapon. It's going to have a different type of construction. It makes the changes. You're going to consume a few more items, but at the same time, you're going to come out with a better weapon. Or with armor, maybe you put on a better quality of plate, or a better quality of material that, or gel that prevents burning to the person, or maybe it water seals it so you can breathe underwater. All of these things just increase the immersion, and I think it was a great move by the Virtuverse team to put that in there. Okay, I'm just going through my notes here. Okay, I believe I touched on all the important stuff for it. There's a lot of things that go into this, and the Virtuverse team has been very generous with providing me the notes necessary to be able to really give you the lowdown on what's going on here. But what I have to say most of all is this. During EA4, when you have the opportunity to play with it, really play with the crafting, the new crafting system. They have made a lot of changes. I think that it's going to all be beneficial. Might take some time for us to figure out, just like it took time for me to figure out how to repair things, where you can't just dump it into a repair machine or hand it off to a blacksmith and hit the repair button and trade some gold in for repairs. and it just magically gets repaired, but instead you actually have to have the right items to repair it, which I believe is unique to Virtuverse. I don't know of any other MMO that does it like that. Anyone can comment below and correct me on that, of course. But I do think this is going to definitely help with the immersion, and it's going to definitely be a USP, a unique selling point for this game. Last little tidbit here, I just want to point out that the new Space Force logo is on the side of these boxes, and that is awesome. And you know, I'm probably going to get ratioed for saying that, but that's okay. That's okay. Space Force. But no, I'm really excited to see what happens in EA4. I'm really excited to see how this crafting system develops further as more and more features get implemented. And I hope that you are too. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Please like, share, and subscribe down below. We're on the road to 13 million subscribers, one subscription at a time, so make sure you subscribe. And Virtuverse is on the road to 13 million colonists, one colonist at a time. Guys, I appreciate your support. Check out Virtuverse. You all have a wonderful day.